In the darkness of the night, the psychiatric hospital building emerged from the fog like a ghost. Abandoned and forgotten by the world, it sat on the outskirts of the city, harboring dark secrets and terrifying memories. No one had set foot inside for years, and the horrifying tales of cruel experiments and hauntings deterred anyone from approaching. But one night, a young man decided to venture into this abandoned hospital, unaware of the nightmare that awaited him, from which he would not be able to escape. Jonathan, an ambitious journalist with a passion for untold stories, decided to conduct his own investigation into the mysterious psychiatric hospital. His curiosity and determination were his driving force, but he never anticipated the horrors concealed behind the doors of this building. Jonathan's past was like a dark stain that he tried to erase from his memory. He was a child when his parents perished in a mysterious fire that consumed their home. Jonathan miraculously escaped from the blazing building, but since then, nightmares haunted him. He lost faith that the world was a safe place. Soon after, he was adopted by an older couple with emotional issues. Despite their efforts to provide him with a normal life, they could not understand the deeply hidden traumas tormenting Jonathan. He often withdrew into himself and avoided contact with his peers. As he grew older, he decided to become a journalist. His fascination with mysteries and untold stories was a way for him to escape his own demons. His work became an obsession, but it offered temporary relief from the terrifying memories. During one of his investigations, he stumbled upon information about the abandoned psychiatric hospital. He realized that uncovering the truth about this place might be his chance to understand what truly happened on the day of the fire that took his parents away. Jonathan discovered that his mother had worked as a nurse in the abandoned psychiatric hospital. It was a shocking revelation, as his parents had always kept their past hidden from him. His mother never mentioned her work at the hospital and avoided any conversation on the topic. It was one of the things shrouded in dark mystery, and Jonathan had no idea what kind of past his family concealed. One day, his mother returned from work, seeming unusually calm, yet disconnected from the rest of the family. She didn't speak to anyone, behaving as if she had experienced some trauma. His father tried to talk to her, but she remained silent, staring ahead as if seeing something no one else could. It was the first time Jonathan saw his mother so helpless and lost. The next day, before his mother could explain anything, their house went up in flames. The fire destroyed everything they had, and his parents perished in the inferno. Jonathan managed to escape the house, but he experienced the loss of his parents and his former life as another blow from fate. Years later, when he read about the abandoned psychiatric hospital, he understood that this place could hold the key to uncovering the truth about his mother. Perhaps what happened in the hospital was the reason behind her trauma and change in behavior. Maybe those events had shaken her to the core, leaving her unable to recover. As he explored the dark corridors of the hospital, Jonathan suddenly realized why his mother kept it hidden. He discovered that the hospital conducted experiments on patients, aimed at controlling their minds and taking away their will. It was a horrifying revelation that shook Jonathan to his core. Inside the hospital, Jonathan came across an old archive of patient records. Amidst the dust and cobwebs, he went through the old files and finally found what he was searching for: his mother Emily's record. Shocked and terrified, he learned that due to the limited number of patients, experiments were also conducted on the staff, including Emily. But the shocking discoveries didn't end there. The record contained detailed documentation of an experiment performed on Emily against her will. It explained how she underwent a controlled brain experiment designed to alter her behavior and deprive her of her will. Holding the file in his hands, Jonathan was shaken by what he read. This discovery explained why his mother was so detached and lost. According to the documents, the operation was done without any anesthesia. When Emily wriggled too much, they gave her electric shocks. They opened her skull with unsterilized tools to cut pieces of her brain, aiming to rob her of her emotions. Previous experiments had failed, but Emily survived. The journal also contained information about the ward itself. The ward where experiments were conducted on patients was subjected to appalling hygiene conditions. The psychiatric hospital, closed off from the outside world, lay in darkness and oblivion. The interiors were neglected, with walls covered in layers of dirt and mold. The smell of dampness and disinfectant mixed in the air, creating a suffocating atmosphere. The poorly lit corridors had flickering lights, leaving vast areas in darkness. Spiderwebs hung on toolboxes, and furniture was covered in dust. The hospital staff, overwhelmed by work and neglect, had no time or resources to maintain the place properly. Rooms designated for procedures and surgeries were the most terrifying. The used tools were rusty and inadequately disinfected, increasing the risk of infection and complications. Basic hygiene items were scarce, and the staff often reused disposable items, endangering patients. Corners and corridors were filled with soiled beddings and dirty clothes scattered around. Every place in the ward was uncomfortable, and patients were forced to sleep on hard and dirty mattresses. Fresh water and warm, nutritious food were lacking, and patients had to use the toilet in unsanitary conditions. The tragic hygiene conditions affected the patient's mental state, already subjected to brutal experiments. Fear of infections and complications resulting from poor conditions intensified their suffering, realizing that they were entirely at the mercy and whim of the hospital staff, the same staff that later had to undergo experiments like Emily. All this turned the psychiatric ward into a place of horror and suffering, where human life was disregarded and devoid of value. Patients lost hope of improving their condition, and the place that was supposed to be for healing turned into their personal hell. The knowledge of what happened to his mother fueled Jonathan's determination to uncover the whole truth and understand why she was deprived of her normal life. He knew he had to learn more about the experiments conducted in this hospital, but it was also the moment he felt like he was being watched, as if his actions were controlled by an invisible force. As Jonathan delved deeper into the secrets of the hospital, he uncovered more cruelty and heartlessness that took place there. He found out that experiments were conducted on many nurses, not just on his mother. These were people subjected to cruel tests that destroyed their minds and bodies. However, as Jonathan approached the truth, strange phenomena began to haunt him. He heard whispers and murmurs, saw shadows gliding through the corridors. He felt constantly observed, and his mind seemed manipulated by unknown forces. Fear started to consume him, but he knew he had to reach the truth despite all the dangers. Eventually, in one of the abandoned rooms, Jonathan discovered a laboratory where experiments were performed on patients. It was a gruesome sight. Sets of tools, medical equipment, and patient files. It felt as if time stood still in this place, leaving the past trapped in darkness. Jonathan came across old video recordings of experiments on patients' minds, including his mother. The disturbing footage showed the suffering and despair of patients deprived of their identities and will. One of the videos featured his mother. The film depicted scenes of surgery and her awakening from anesthesia. She was asked if she loved her son and husband, and when she answered yes, they applied electric shocks and stabbed her with a syringe, causing her to writhe in pain and vomit. Jonathan felt that he couldn't bear to watch these horrifying images any longer, but he knew he had to find evidence that would help him reveal the truth to the world. However, at a certain point during the videos, a message appeared. Day 8, the way out. Emily, seemingly absent, answered the same questions again. However, this time, her response to whether she loved her family was no. The next question made Jonathan break into a cold sweat. It asked, "Will you soon set fire to your house to kill you all?" Her response was, "Yes." Jonathan felt nauseous. He turned around and saw the figure of his mother standing in the doorway. Her eyes were lifeless, and her face displayed fear and suffering. Jonathan rushed towards her, but she vanished into the darkness, as if she were a figment of his imagination. He began to chase her and ended up in a bathroom. When he looked in the mirror, he saw his tired reflection. However, this time, something was different. His mother's reflection appeared superimposed on his own image. She was there, as if drawing him closer, gently nodding, encouraging him to approach. At first, Jonathan started to move towards the reflection, feeling a mix of fear and longing. The pain and longing he felt after losing his mother were overwhelming. He believed it might be a chance to see her and talk to her, even if only for a moment. However, as he got closer, something in him snapped back to reality. He felt a strange and incredible coldness permeating his body, as if some instinct warned him of danger. A horrifying disgust overcame him as he noticed his mother's face starting to distort. At that moment, Jonathan snapped out of the trance and stepped back. He said aloud several times, "You are not my mother!" These words acted like a spell, shattering the illusion. His mother's reflection changed dramatically. Her face transformed into a grotesque monster, with a brain exposed, splattering brown and burning blood everywhere. Night fell. and Jonathan decided not to wait until the first rays of dawn to escape this accursed place. He knew it might be his only chance to save himself and his mother from the dark fate this place had brought upon them. Suddenly, amidst the darkness, he heard strange sounds and whispers. He crouched down to identify the source, but found nothing. The sounds were echoes of his own thoughts swirling in his mind. Jonathan took a deep breath and decided to continue. He was ready to face any danger to break free from the dark imprisonment of the psychiatric hospital. At that moment, the hospital began to shake. The walls trembled, and it felt as if the entire space was spinning around him. Fear engulfed him completely, and strange thoughts and visions began to flood his mind. He was certain he was a victim of the same cruel experiments that befell his mother. Then, something unexpected happened. The laboratory door slammed shut, cutting Jonathan off from the rest of the hospital. He saw a figure in a white coat emerging before him, a doctor who once conducted those horrific experiments. The doctor spoke softly and monotonously, as if under some hypnotic influence, and his words sounded like echoes from the past. You must understand that you are part of the experiment. Your mind is our laboratory. Your mother is just one of many cases. You are a surrogate on which we test our mind control techniques. You are one of our successes. Jonathan couldn't believe what he was hearing. He felt his mind being shattered and reality blurred before his eyes. He knew he had to escape and reveal the truth to the world before he was completely consumed by the dark forces that controlled this place. In that moment, the psychiatric hospital caught fire. Flames engulfed the abandoned corridors, and the whole space seemed to be ablaze. Jonathan had no choice but to run from the fire that seemed to chase him. He found himself outside, surrounded by a dark forest. In the distance, he saw figures observing him. He felt controlled and trapped, unable to escape his fate. Nevertheless, he refused to give up. He had to survive, had to find a way to uncover the truth and save himself from the dark destiny that awaited him. He felt a strong blow to the back of his head and fell unconscious. When he woke up again, he was back in the hospital. The place was dark and oppressive. Jonathan illuminated his way with a flashlight, casting a sinister shadow on the walls. Something inside him told him this wasn't a good place, but his curiosity wouldn't let him turn back. Suddenly, from around the corner, he saw a blurry figure that quickly disappeared into the darkness. Jonathan rushed after it, but when he reached the end of the corridor, the figure was gone. He felt like he was trapped in a maze with no way out. His fear intensified as he began to hear whispers and footsteps. When he turned around, he saw horrifying visions of patients circling him. Their pale and contorted faces made Jonathan doubt his sense of reality. Trapped in this dark place, he was losing touch with reality with every passing moment. He became increasingly certain that the hospital was haunted by the spirits of patients who never found peace. Just when it seemed there was no escape, Jonathan unexpectedly stumbled upon an old rusty key that had fallen to the floor from a dangling piece of a door. It was the missing piece of the puzzle that allowed him to unlock an old secluded stairwell. He broke free from the inside of the hospital and let out a sigh of relief as the cold wind touched his cheeks. He knew he had to escape, but curiosity slowly started to consume him. What was the reason behind these strange phenomena? What happened to the patients of this hospital? Were the tales of haunting real? Determined not to give up, he returned inside the hospital with the intent to uncover the truth. He wandered through the darkness, and his heart pounded like a bell. Finally, he reached a hidden room where once gruesome experiments were performed. There, he saw the terrifying truth. They weren't ghosts of patients, but something far more sinister. A group of people in lab coats stood around a strange machine emitting a terrifying sound. Jonathan realized that they were responsible for creating these fake hauntings to scare people away from this place. Before he could do anything, he was caught by the mysterious people and imprisoned in the experimental room. The machine was activated, and Jonathan felt something strange entering his mind. His fear reached unimaginable levels as he realized he had become another victim of cruel experiments. He was asked, "Will you set fire to your office?" He screamed, "No!" The group proceeded with the experiment, cutting pieces of Jonathan's brain.